Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent ISD, and I'm so glad to have Kelly Jost with us today. She is a civil engineer who works in airport planning, design, and construction. She's a leader there. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
So we love to take our role models back to high school, Kelly. When you were, 15 or 16 or so, did you think you'd grow up to be a civil engineer and specifically even in the airport world, aviation? Tell us about your early thinking.
I did not, at 15 or 16, I did not know I was going to be a civil engineer. I did have maybe some aspirations to be a pilot. I knew that I had some interest in aviation. I had gone for my first flight when I was in eighth grade, and then I was by myself. My family put me on a plane to go to California to visit other family that lived out there. And I just remember being glued to the window and just looking outside the entire time, flying over the Grand Canyon, and just thinking, this is really cool. And maybe I want to be a pilot. So, I went through all kinds of different ideas of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an artist at one point, a pilot. But yeah, really, my dad was the one that could put the civil engineering idea into my head.
Well, good. We're going to dig into that. But it's fun to hear how even that one experience could just prompt something in your heart about aviation. So young people, pay attention to what interests you because you never know what kind of clues are there. So in high school, you're thinking about maybe an artist, pilot. Did you like school? Did that come easily for you when you think
Did like
about?
school.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed school. I don't know that I had a lot of major challenges in terms of like the schoolwork and things like that. Yeah, so I really did enjoy school and I liked some of the creative aspects of it. I was in some theater stuff for a little while and things like that. But didn't really have engineering on my radar in high school.
When did pilot kind of fall off your list, or did it stay on there for a little while before the civil engineering thing came up? Tell us how that kind of transformation went, or that you're thinking to help young people understand it's a process.
Yeah. So once I got into my senior year in high school, they had what's called a discovery flight, and that was done at Muskegon County Airport, where I'm from. And you can go up with a pilot and you can, they let you touch the yoke and, help take the plane off and, just kind of understand what it's like to sit in the cockpit. And so I did that and I loved it. I thought it was great. But then when I started talking about being a pilot and thinking about it a little more, the schedule is a little different. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. You're gone a lot and you're traveling, which is very exciting. But at the same time, I didn't know if I wanted that for myself in the future. So because of that, I started looking at some other things, and I was still, having that interest in aviation and airports, and couldn't quite figure out how to make those match up. But that I did figure that out eventually.
Well, I think you bring up such a good point, that our values of family life balance or what's important to us, and you knew that schedule was not going to be a good fit. So I love that you're helping young people understand that we have to listen to those pieces of it too. So not sure about the schedule. So then how did the civil engineering thing come to be?
So, like I said, my dad was involved in the construction industry. I really like to be outside. I don't necessarily like to sit at a desk every day. So he put the idea in my head, well, what if you became a surveyor? And surveyors are really outside on a day-to-day basis. They're working on construction projects, they're working on design projects, and they have equipment and they're outside a lot, not necessarily sitting behind a desk. And I thought, oh, that might be kind of cool. Let's look into that. So I did, and I looked at the program, and the more I looked into it, for me, the more I realized that surveying is actually part of a civil engineering curriculum. So it's a piece of what we do, and it's a part of what we would learn as a civil engineer. And so for me, I thought I could do more with civil engineering. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. And so that was ultimately why I made that decision to go towards civil engineering. And that really wasn't until my senior year. I didn't really figure that out until, once I was getting ready to go to school.
Was math and science something that you liked? Was it part of your conversation of maybe I'll end up somewhere with math and science or not so much?
Not really so much. it's something like I never hated it, I never loved it. It was just something I had to do as part of school. And so yeah, I was pretty good at it. So that was something that we talked about like with my parents and stuff. And I knew that being an engineer, I would have to go through some pretty difficult math classes and things like that. But I guess I didn't let that scare me away. And I think people can do more than they think they can sometimes. So give yourself some credit and do the hard stuff. And I think it benefits you in the future.
You're giving some good role model advice there, Kelly. So you go off to college to get your civil engineering degree. What was that like? Did you get internships? Was it something you got study groups? How'd you kind of get through those hard math classes?
Yeah, definitely study groups, and they had there's like a math lab you could go to where it's a lot of times it's students that are tutoring and helping out. Professors also have office hours that you should really take advantage of. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Just it's not easy for a lot of people. That's what I want students to realize is it's work. You know, you're not just born smart necessarily. You have to work hard and learn these things. So yeah, definitely utilizing the resources that were available. I went to Michigan Tech University and they had a lot of good resources for any classes that were difficult.
Why don't you, for just a few young people who may not know what a civil engineer does, help us understand what that is and even how you decide on that one versus some other types of engineers?
Mhm. Yeah, I think part of it was the being outside and the construction background that my dad had. He also did an interesting thing when I was a kid, around the age of 11. You know, he decided to build a mini golf course and go-kart track. And I just remember the land being standing out on the land and it was just a blank slate. It was just a piece of grass with nothing on it. And then I got to go through the process with him of getting the design, figuring out what the mini golf holes were going to look like, building up a hill with a waterfall and all of the different pieces that go into it, the concrete for the holes and the fence. And so all of that is really civil engineering, the dirt work. I didn't realize it at the time. And like I said, I was 11. So knowing that I had that moment in time, but then didn't realize the civil engineering part until my senior year. But all of that stuff is civil engineering, pavement, infrastructure, building. So you can do lots of different things with it. There's um, different specialties. You could go into structural engineering and make buildings or design buildings. Yeah, if anything, I would say just infrastructure is a good way to describe it.
I love hearing the story about the mini golf. It was foreshadowing things. Your dad, obviously, that
A
was a
little bit.
huge, yes, I love it, love
Yeah.
it.
I found an old picture of myself walking through the site with like a shovel on my shoulder, like pushing a wheelbarrow. And I'm like, oh, well, I was meant to be a civil engineer, work on construction projects, you know?
That's so cool. And it says a lot about your dad because for some, there probably weren't a lot of women in your civil engineering classes. Tell us about being a female in what would be considered a non-traditional type engineering.
Yeah, definitely something I noticed. Even one of my early memories in school as a freshman is going into my chemistry lab, and it was just me and one other girl, and we kind of looked at each other and went, "We're going to be lab partners." So you know, it's something I noticed, but I guess you can't let it deter you, and you just do the work and learn what you need to learn and ask a lot of questions and just don't be afraid to work hard.
Well, Michigan Tech's known for engineering. Did you have internship as part of that? Did that help lead to your next step? Tell us about that transition from college to working world.
Yeah, I had several internships, and I'll say, just to give a little background on how I ended up in the aviation world, I kind of had a light bulb moment at Michigan Tech. I had a professor who taught airport design, and I didn't know this was an option when I first decided on civil engineering. So it was definitely like the light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, there is an airport design class, and I can do that as a civil engineer. And that professor, Dr. Sproul, at Michigan Tech. He was really a mentor to me. He gave me companies I could go work
Oh,
for.
I can't hear you all of a
Um,
sudden. Oh, there we,
oh,
you just dropped for a minute. You're back.
okay. yeah, he just told me about the jobs that were available and companies I could work for. And yeah, you can do this as a civil engineer. So he helped me a lot. But I did end up doing a couple internships throughout my college career. I worked for the city of Muskegon for 2 summers, and I started off as a surveyor, which was kind of that initial conversation with my dad about maybe I want to be a surveyor. And that led to a second summer at the city where I did some different kind of tasks, more design related, worked on their sidewalk improvement program, got to go out into the neighborhood and talk to residents and, talk about fixing their concrete sidewalks and things like that. And then I also worked for a materials company that they do like testing of materials. And with that company, I got to go out and do pavement, basically like looking at pavements at airports. And that was all throughout the state of Michigan. So that was a really cool experience to be able to be out in the field, out at different airports in Michigan, reviewing what the pavement condition was, and then doing reports and reporting back. And so that was another whole summer that I did that. So it kind of all just like built on each other. I realized that maybe I didn't really want to work with the city where I, have to talk to residents and explain things to them. So you kind of find out what you like and what you don't like through some internships and things like that. So it does really help to guide your career.
Now, young people are probably wondering, did you have to find your own internships? Is that something your college helped you with? How did you find those really amazing opportunities?
That's a good question. I don't know that I remember exactly. I think that definitely at Michigan Tech, there's a career center. So they will help with all kinds of things like help with your resume, help you do mock interviews so that you can practice doing interviews in front of somebody in a non-threatening manner, somewhere where you won't feel as nervous and just kind of get practice. So I definitely did go to the career center for some help with those things. I think for the job specifically, a lot of times it's relationships. And because I lived in the city of Muskegon, I don't remember exactly how it all worked out, but I'm sure I can say that it was my parents knew somebody or got me in for, to talk to somebody initially. Then I got to put in my resume, and then it led to a summer internship. So I would say that's the best way to go about it. If you just put your resume into 20 different companies online, it's just not as helpful as if you have a relationship or know somebody that can get you to the right person.
Yes. What would you recommend a young person who maybe doesn't have a strong network? How might they find opportunities? What kind of door should they be knocking on if they
Get
want to do
out
something
there.
similar?
Yeah, get out there in industry and join different groups. So Women in Aviation is a great group. If you're interested in aviation at all, they do all kinds of events. You can meet people there that work in all different parts of the industry. It's really just about putting yourself out there and do volunteer work. I mean, anything that you do where you can meet a person, even if it's sitting on an airplane and you strike up a conversation with the person next to you, you just never know. If you're curious about people and ask questions to people and learn about them and their job, they might know somebody that knows somebody, and you just never know. So I'd say get out there, join groups, and be active.
That's great, great advice. I'm so glad you shared that specifically. So you're at college, you got this light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, I get to do civil engineering with airports. How did you make that transition though? You must have been so excited to see those two interests come together.
I was so excited. I was very excited about that. And like I said, my professor was very good about giving me a lot of companies that I could potentially work for. But things didn't work out the way I anticipated, and that's normal. And I guess I want to get that thought across too, because don't be disappointed if it doesn't happen immediately. Because I put in a bunch of different resumes with a bunch of different companies. I did have an interview with a company that did airport work, but they wanted me to take a job offer in California. And I really wasn't looking to move out of Michigan. I was looking for something in the state of Michigan, and that kind of restricted me a little bit. If I wanted to stay here locally, I had to think about that. So I ended up taking a job with the Michigan Department of Transportation in highways. So again, necessarily what I was originally thinking I wanted to go into. However, I thought it was a good opportunity because they had an engineering mentoring program, and I was able to, through that engineering mentoring program, go to all of the different departments of MDOT and get to know people and kind of see what everybody did in their different departments. And there just happens to be a Bureau of Aeronautics in the Department of Transportation. So they only gave me 2 weeks there. I only went there for 2 weeks as part of my rotation, but I met people. I did some work. I said, hey, soon as you guys have a job opening, please remember me and think of me and give me a call. And it took 3 years. So I was in highways and in the mentoring program for 3 years. But during those 3 years, I got really great experience and I met great people, and still some friends I have today that I met at that time. And I got a full year in construction. And I think that was really important to have that experience. And even though it wasn't on airports, it was still leading me towards what I eventually wanted to do. And so, sure enough, after 3 years, I was able to get in at the Bureau of Aeronautics and then worked for them for 3 years before I came to CNS.
I love that you normalized that it's not always a straight line right out of college, and that all of those experiences through that 3 years were building blocks of where you ended up going. So I think young people, we really have to help them understand that those early parts of our career help build the skills and experiences to get us to the next place. So thank you so much for sharing that. But I'm sure, there were times you're like, where am I going? How is this working out? But that's normal.
Yeah, it's normal. It's a zigzag. It's nothing's in a straight line. Just remember that. And it's okay because every experience you're going to learn something and you're going to use that in the future. You may not realize it at the time, but all of that is good experience to have.
And you would have never known there's a Bureau of Aeronautics if you hadn't been at MDOT. So I love that.
Right, exactly.
So you have 3 years, and then you're with the company there for 3 years. So you got 6 years under your belt, and then you decided, there's something else I might want to do. Tell us about that thinking and how you got there.
Yeah. So while I was at the Department of Transportation, I was working directly with a lot of consultants. And so my job was more on the funding side and reviewing plans that consultants were putting together. I wasn't doing a lot of design work myself. And I really wanted to get that design experience and wanted to learn more about that side of the business. So there was a point in time, I was going to conferences and meeting people and working with consultants every day. And at one point in time, someone from CNS just asked me the question. They said, hey, would you ever think about leaving the state to come and work for a consultant? I said, yes, I would think about that. And we started having a conversation. I learned more about the company and asked a lot of questions. And, it was a hard move because you're coming from a very stable government job, very good benefits, really good holidays and, sick time and vacation time and all of that. And I was ready for something different. I was ready for a change and it was the right time. And I've been here now for 19 years, so it was the right move for me at that time.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted just to point out for young people watching this that you continue to network and meet people. So that conversation to always be seeking and looking and connecting because you don't know what it's going to lead to. So I love that.
Right.
Help them understand then what is a typical day for you now that as a civil engineer in a airport planning, design, and construction. What does that day look like? Help us understand what you do.
Oh, it's different every day, and it's different today as a supervisor versus what it was like back, when I first started. So I don't know if you want me to
Let
talk
me do the
about
part
both
in the
or
beginning. Let's talk about
okay.
that just because that's where it's closer to where the young people are career-wise.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So in the beginning, really we were building our business here in Michigan. So our company is based in Syracuse, New York, and we also had an office in Ohio. And we were only working at one airport in Michigan at the time. So part of my job became business development, and that was brand new to me. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't learn about it in school. It's not a technical skill. So it's going out, visiting airports, finding out what work they have coming up and trying to get work. So that was part of my job from the get-go. Besides that, I was working on, again, because we only had limited work in Michigan, I was working on Ohio projects and New York projects. and it was doing CAD, so computer aided design, which is a great skill for anybody to have to be able to do that. Writing specifications, learning about like training and just learning about the different programs that we used and writing design reports. That was kind of my day to day. And some of it was in the office, but then we also do a lot of site visits, visiting sites where we're going to be doing the work. I also did some construction inspection too. So that's where our company would be overseeing a contractor that's actually performing the work. We're on site to do things like make sure that they're following the plans and the specifications and that they're building it correctly. And because we get a lot of federal and state funding, it has to meet certain requirements. So it's a lot of just making sure that they're following what's in the plans and specs.
Well, I know young people are wondering, Kelly, how did you even know how to do those things? You hadn't done business development before. You haven't necessarily done training or site visits or inspected people. Like, help young people understand how this works in the adult world of work that you learn on the job where people are showing you. Help us understand how you started to develop this whole toolbox of skills.
Yeah, you just sometimes you get thrown in the fire and you learn as you go and you ask. Keep going back to it, but ask questions. Keep asking questions. There are no stupid questions because you don't know and you don't ask, you're never going to figure it out. Um, so yeah, it's having mentors and having people that are willing to train you and really digging in. Sometimes we're very regulated industry, so a lot of this stuff is written down, and it's just a matter of figuring out where to look and reading through some of those things and getting guidance, whether it's from people within the company or people at the Federal Aviation Administration, which we work with a lot, or still working with those people at MDOT in the Bureau of Aeronautics and asking them questions about funding and learning about that. And yeah, it's an ongoing process, and I'm still learning till this day. I've been doing this, now in the industry for 25 years now, and it doesn't ever stop.
And I think that's a personality trait of people who probably go into engineering. They're always lifelong learners. They want to keep pressing that envelope. So I love that young people can hear that and start to self-assess for themselves. Is this me? Tell us what your favorite part of your job is and what the least favorite part is.
Oh boy. The favorite part of my job, I love being at airports. I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Um, that's part of it is just being at the airports, but really being able to see a design on paper and, like I said before, like a blank slate or an area at the airport where there isn't anything, and then being able to see it being built and the finished product and see people using it, whether it's a terminal and you see people walking through the terminal and going to their gates, or whether it's a runway and you get to see the airplanes taking off for the first time on that runway that you helped design. That's my favorite part of it is just seeing everything come together after a lot of work. Um, my least favorite part, that's a hard question. I guess I would say, I mean, balance is tough. Sometimes we just get very busy and you have to kind of figure out what to say no to and what to say yes to because you really just can't do it all. You have to count on the people you work with and just all of the different things that are going on in life, your family, and balancing what's going on at work with what's going on in your personal life. And I would say that's probably the hardest part, is just making sure that you have that balance.
Yeah, for sure. In high schools, we try to teach young people about teamwork and collaboration and critical thinking, some of those soft skills, they call them. Help us understand why that stuff is important. Why should young people pay attention to those things about teamwork and collaboration and critical thinking?
Oh, so important. I mean, you always have to work with people. There's always teams. These projects don't happen with one person sitting in a room by themselves. There's coordination internally with your team. There's sub-consultants, there's clients, there's governmental agencies. A lot of it comes down to communication. things can go very wrong if you don't communicate well. So being able to relate to people and understand yourself and your emotions and how you work as a person. And then even just, we talked about networking and how you get jobs, and all of that is important to be able to move up and get promotions and work at different companies. So yeah, it's all very important. And it's not necessarily something that you learn in school, but there's definitely a lot of industry organizations that offer training for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because some of those other roles that you mentioned, a lot of us are like, well, how would you even get to those jobs? So again, that networking and talking to people and really discovering some of the people around you. So just with kind of projects you do, Kelly, why don't you share just in a minute or two, like, what are some of those other roles? And maybe what would be some of those entry level that young people could pursue to then get moved up, like you did with the surveying?
Yeah, I mean, you could start out even just as a construction laborer if you don't have if you have a high school degree and you're not sure if you want to go to college, that's something you can go and do right now. They need people to work on construction sites. You could do something like a 2-year degree and get a CAD certification. We hire people that can do CAD work. And so that's and there's a lot of companies that do that, automotive companies and all different types of places that you can work with a CAD certification. And then there's the 4-year degree, which is the route that I went with getting the engineering degree. Um, becoming an engineer, or kind of going down the path of, if you want to be more technical and work on the design side, or do you want to become a manager and be a supervisor of people? Do you want to lead a whole company and be a CEO someday? There's just all different types of routes you can go. The business development is a whole nother part of the business that some people might want to go 100% and do that only, but a lot of us do a mix. We do a little bit of business development, but we also do the technical side. So, and then there's all kinds of stuff in aviation too that I could go on and on about, but I know our time is limited.
I think what is such a great encouragement to young people who are fascinated by aviation, that there's so many different roles to be part of it. Like you say, to be at the airport, hearing those planes, being part of it, very exciting. We did approach our 30 minutes though, so I do want to get your final word of wisdom as we finish up. Kelly, you've been a great role model.
Well, thank you. I would say have confidence in yourself. Put yourself out there. I think I said it before, but you can do more than you think you can. And sometimes I've needed a little push. And that's why those mentors are so very important, is because sometimes those people will see the potential in you more than you'll see it in yourself. So surround yourself with those people, and they will tell you, go after that job, go after that promotion, go after that opportunity. And you can kind of get rid of that negative self-talk in your head and build that confidence by doing things. That's something I've learned, is that building confidence is really an action. It's an actionable thing. You just do things, you learn from it, and then you go, oh, I did that. And it builds that confidence. So yeah, that's the advice I would give to the kids.
Well, it's fantastic advice. And I so appreciate you being with us today. Thank you for sharing your journey with us and inspiring young people.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.